Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Oikos teaching. A little change of scenery. Today, back on the couch, but still in the living room, from my living room to yours. This week, I thought we'd do a little chat. Hopefully, get your cup of coffee. Just like we said, sitting in the living room, having a little chat together. As always, want to encourage you to go to the website. You can find the notes there. The videos of these messages, the ones I do in-house in Concord. So if you're around and available, 21 Dunkley Street in Concord, New Hampshire, come on by, visit us in person. It's always good to get in person, you know. There's an atmosphere that you feel and sense, and it's like being part of something, being part of other people, and you know, things like that. But if this is the best we can do with the conditions that are happening, hey, we'll go with the flow, right? We'll do this. So this Sunday, which happens to be Valentine's Day, so happy Valentine. If you're into that stuff, you know, guys, if you didn't get your wife something or your girlfriend something, you might be in the doghouse. But anyway, I don't want to digress. So this week I want to share with you rumblings that I'm hearing. We know the world has gone crazy lately. It just really seems to be out of control. And from a spiritual perspective, people are starting to wonder, well, is this the end times? Is the Lord returning soon? What are the signs of his times? I mean, the signs of his return that is coming. And I just want to share that with you a little bit, not in an in-depth way, but just something if you've kind of wondered and you've heard a lot of different discussion on the topic. Give you some practical biblical places you can go to without getting into deep prophecy. I don't want to get into deep prophecy, end time prophecy. I remember back years and years ago when I was first saved, you know, there was a guy in the first church I would attend. He was into Revelation. He was into the end time prophets. And he wanted to talk to me about it all the time. And I'm thinking, like, buddy, I don't, you know, not that it's all speculation, because the Lord is going to return. There's no doubt about that. When he's going to return, there's plenty of, you know, conjecture about that. If you've been around any length of time, you knew God was returning in 85, I think it was, or 88, and the 88 reasons. People have always been predicting when the Lord comes back. So there's no doubt he's coming back. But I just want to give you a general understanding of what are the signs? What does the Bible actually say about it? And we've heard these terms that when the Lord returns will be like in the day of Lot. And the story of Lot is found in Genesis 19. And I'm just going to quickly look at verses 4, 5, and 9, but you can read the whole chapter. It's about half the chapter. But anyway, let me start out by telling you what was the days of Lot characterized by. And it was characterized by homosexuality and violence against those that stood up against homosexuality. So here in verse 4 in Genesis 19, it says this. It says, but before they retired for the night. Now remember, two angels showed up. They were going to stay outside in the city square. Lot sees them, goes out and says, no, come on in, be my guest or whatever. And they're like, no, we'll just stay out here. And Lot knew what would happen if they stayed out there. So it's like, no, come on in and be my guest. So we pick it up in verse 4. It says, again, but before they retired for the night, all the men of Sodom, young and old, all the men of Sodom, young and old, came from all over the city and surrounded the house. Verse 5, they shouted to Lot, where are those men who came to spend the night with you? Bring them out to us so we can have sex with them. So there's a huge crowd. Said, hey, bring those two guys out. We want to have sex with them. Verse 9, after there was a little discussion going on at the door, verse 9 says this, stand back, they shouted, because they weren't putting up with what Lot was telling them. This fellow came to our town as an outsider, and now he's acting like our judge. Sound familiar? if you stand up against something, all of a sudden you're judging that person. No, they weren't judging the person. So that's what we need to understand. When we stand up against unrighteousness, we're not judging the unrighteous person. That's God's job. He'll do that. What we're doing is standing up against the unrighteous behavior or the acceptance of the unrighteous behavior. But see, the mantra of the unrighteous is always the same. What are you judging me? You ain't got no right to judge me. They said the same thing a lot. It goes on, it says, we'll treat you far worse than those other men. Look at, if you don't give us what we are demanding, we're going to commit violence against you. We're going to treat you worse than them. We see that today, don't we? I'm not just stating on this, but if you don't succumb, if you don't submit, if you don't bow down, if you don't, we're going to make sure we commit violence against you. We're going to make it hard for you to live if you don't, or whatever the case may be. Or this deal, roll up, that type of deal. We're going to make it difficult for you because you don't have any say in the matter. So again, in the day of Lot, things get turned around, right? Here's Lot, righteous one of God. It's kind of questionable, but anyway, he got saved when the angels came to actually warn him to get him out of Dodge because they're going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. So again, we've heard about the days of Lot. So what characterized the days of Lot? Homosexuality and violence against anyone that stood up against it. We've also heard this term, the days of Noah. The end will be just like the days of Noah, right? And Noah's time was characterized by extreme wickedness along with manipulation of human DNA. I don't know if we've kind of gotten that in there, but that was there. That's in Genesis chapter 6. Read the whole chapter for yourself, but I'm just going to give you verse 4 and 5 in Genesis chapter 6, and it says this. In those days, and for some time after, giant Naphtali lived on the earth. For whenever the sons of God had intercourse with women, they gave birth to children who became the heroes and famous warriors of ancient times. Verse 5, the Lord observed the extent of human wickedness on the earth, and he saw that everything they thought or imagined was constantly and totally wicked. I mean, it was so bad, we know what happened. God wiped out the earth. Told Noah to build a boat, get his family in there, animals in there, and he wiped out everything. Why? Because again, it was characterized by extreme wickedness. Good was bad, bad was good. I mean, the people were constantly thinking, dreaming up how wicked they could be. But then we saw DNA manipulation. See, this doesn't get spoken about enough, and I'm not going to do a deep dive into it now. If you want to know more about it, shoot me a message. Go to the website, fill out the communication card, put a message on the bottom of this, either on Facebook, Twitter, wherever, the places I put it up, YouTube, whatever. But, we have this Greek mythology and other things where we see half human, half animal type thing. My belief and my understanding is those things probably happened because we had spirit beings engaging sexually with human beings and creating a hybrid. And the hybrid would eventually completely destroy God's creation. We've heard of that before. Let's make superhuman beings. Let's manipulate people's DNA. Let's put other animal DNA into humans. Let's put fetal tissue DNA into humans. Just like the day of Noah. We're seeing manipulation of DNA, trying to manipulate human DNA for whatever. And I mean, it's all under the guise of doing good stuff, helping out people, fixing birth defects, creating better people, I find it amazing how man thinks he can always improve on God's design. God gave us an immune system that works perfectly as long as we keep it healthy, but yet man has figured out, no, you need this pill, or you need this shot, or you need this thing to really fix you. Like the days of Noah. Extreme wickedness. Like the days of Lot. If you don't agree and line up with us, there will be physical violence directed towards you. We also see in 2 Timothy, and verses 1 to 9, the first part of 2 Timothy chapter 3. I'm sorry, I didn't give you a chapter. Chapter 3, verses 1 to 9. This gets characterized by a godless, wicked society. And I'm just going to read a couple verses to you here. I think I got 2 verses. It says, for the people will love themselves. For people will love only themselves and their money. So people will be very self-centered. They will be boastful and proud, scoffing at God. You know, only you weak folk need that God stuff, you know. Real people don't need God. We can stand up, pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. You know, they'll scoff at God. Disobedient to their parents. Man, it's tough being a parent today. And ungrateful. A lot of ungratefulness going on we see in society today. It says they will consider nothing sacred. There's nothing sacred. Look what's going on with the presidency. Nothing sacred. Still boggles my mind how people can look at our Constitution and then go and impeach a private citizen. There's nothing sacred. Constitution is not sacred. Here's certain other activities that we did back in November aren't sacred anymore, because what the heck, if a few dead people voted or whatever, it didn't change the election. Nothing's sacred anymore. There's nothing that, you know, we look at and saying, no, that's untouchable. We don't go there. See, those are the signs of the end, where it says nothing's sacred anymore. I'm not talking about religious or whatever. They were just activities that we believed as a society to be sacred. Free speech. No, because if you disagree with the narrative, now you are banned off social media. Because we got to, you know, there's nothing sacred anymore. You know, we look to the founding fathers and the founding documents. You know, the government shall not establish any religion, nor mess with the free exercise thereof. You can read it for yourself. I'm not quoting it. But then what did we do? Lock down churches. I mean, churches in California actually had to go to the Supreme Court to get an order to say, yeah, you can worship. It's right there in the Constitution. That's not to be messed with. See, nothing's sacred anymore. And that ought to be scary to many of us. There were non-negotiables. Things that you didn't mess with, things you didn't touch, things that you just knew, we'll just use the term because that's what the Bible is saying, is sacred. You know, and now, because unrighteousness has been pretty prevalent, like we said, godlessness, unrighteousness, wickedness is pervasive in society today, and nothing is sacred. In fact, if you try to make it sacred once again, you get called the problem. No, the Constitution is an organic document. It's old and archaic, and we don't really need to follow it anymore. Apparently not. Well, you can impeach a private citizen. So that was the end times. They're going to be difficult, it says. What else does it say here? Verse 3, they will be unloving and unforgiving. They will slander others and have no self-control. They will be cruel and hate what is good. We see that. So let me get to the crux of the matter here. what are the signs that Jesus said were the end? Because in Matthew 24, in verses 3 to 14, you can go read it for yourself, please. I'm going to read it out of the Message translation, kind of quickly go through it. But this is what Jesus said. It says, later, as he was sitting on Mount Olives, his disciples approached him and asked, tell us, when are these things going to happen? What will be the sign of your coming, that the time is up? So we're going to get it right out of the horse's mouth, so to speak. Not being sacrilegious, I'm just saying. I think Jesus is a good person to go to and say, hey, disciples did. What's the sign of it? Time's up. So Jesus said, watch out for doomsday deceivers. Many leaders are going to show up with forged identities claiming, I am Christ the Messiah. They will deceive a lot of people. When reports come in of wars and rumors of wars, keep your head and don't panic. This is routine history. This is not sign of the end. Nations will fight against nations, ruler fight rulers, over and over. Famines and earthquakes will occur in various places. This is nothing compared to what is coming. Verses 9 and 10. They're going to throw you to the wolves and kill you, everyone hating you because you carry my name. It reminds me of verse 9 in the Passion Translation says it this way. You can expect to be persecuted, even killed, for you will be hunted by all the nations because of your love for me. Now back to the Message translation says, and then going from bad to worse, it's going to be dog eat dog. Everyone at each other's throat, everyone hating each other. The Passion Translation puts verse 10 this way, then many will stop following me and fall away. They will betray one another and hate one another. Verse 11 and 12 in the Message says this, in the confusion, lying preachers will come forward and deceive a lot of people. Verse 11 in the Passion. I like to go back and forth with translations. It helps me better understand it. I hope I'm not confusing you. That's why I get the notes. Read what I'm reading. Verse 11 in the Passion Translation says it this way, and many lying prophets will arise, deceiving multitudes and leading them away from the path of truth. For many others, the overwhelming spread of evil will do them in. Nothing left of their love but mounds of ashes. Again, Passion Translation puts that verse this way. There will be such an increase of sin and lawlessness that those whose hearts once burned with passion for God and others will grow cold. Verses 13 and 14 in the Message says, stay with it. That's what God requires. Stay with it to the end. You won't be sorry, you'll be saved. Verse 13 in the Passion Translation says this, but keep your hope. Keep your hope. Endure to the end, and you will experience life and deliverance or be saved. All during this time, the good news, the message of the kingdom will be preached all over the world and witnessed, staked out in every country, and then the end will come. So I'm sorry if that was a little confusing, bouncing back and forth. Again, go to the church website. The notes are there. You can read this. Please look up the text for yourself. So let's kind of put it in a nutshell, so to speak. What was Jesus saying that signs of the end will be? What will it look like as it's approaching? The first one was deceivers, deception, and liars. There'll be no integrity in leadership or in leaders. And we certainly see that in what we call the main house in D.C. No integrity in leadership or leaders. Say one thing, do another. Promise one thing, do the exact opposite. They're deceivers and liars and deception. The second one is, and this one's important, I want you to catch this one. Routine history is just that. It's not a sign. There's always going to be wars. People are always pointing to wars as the sign of the end, or famine, or earthquake, or pestilence, or disease, and rampant, pestilence, we call it. No, Jesus said, no, that's always around. That's part of history. And the main two I want to get to is these, especially for us that are believers, is these 2 points. Worldwide religious persecution from the secular world. So what do I mean? Persecution from without. Causes a great falling away from Christ due to the external pressures of the persecution. People are going to fall away from Christ because of external persecution and pressures. Family pressure, work pressure. You know, the cancel culture is in full-blown going at it. If you don't get in line in lockstep, no job, no food, no family, isolation, all that stuff, there's going to be persecution from without. And it says many are going to fall away. And this is the one that really bothers me. I'm calling deception from within. We see deception and lying from the church pulpits. I felt heavy-hearted this past week putting up something about Ravi Zachariah. You know, finding out a little secret hidden life that he was carrying on. A well-known religious leader. There's going to be many religious leaders being exposed. God's doing a great shaking and awakening right now. And there's deception in the pulpits. The signs will be leading people away from biblical truth. That's how you know a false prophet, false preacher, false pastor, whatever. They lead you away from biblical truth. There'll be an increase of sin and lawlessness, not just in the pulpits, but in the house of God. You know, well, this is okay. This behavior is okay. Well, they're only baby Christians. They don't know any better. There's no lawlessness in the house of God. We see many churches going awry. I don't want to get into specifics here because that's not my point. What I would like us to do and understand, we need to be discerning. When churches now stop declaring the kingdom message and start declaring social justice, that's a problem. See, the kingdom message, the gospel, will bring about social justice. Will bring about change. But you know, when they're talking about things that I've already brought up as being acceptable in the church, in the pulpits, that's where the problem is. It's not about acceptance. It's about obedience to a holy God. About being holy because He's holy. He gets to set the rules. We don't. See, we think we're all that in a bag of chips because we are accepting of unrighteousness. No, unrighteousness is never acceptable. People are acceptable. We need to share the gospel with people to so that their eyes can be open to see the truth of what the Bible is saying, what is right and what is wrong, because in the end, it's all going to be turned upside down. Bad will be called good and good will be called bad. Nothing will be sacred. Anything goes. Not only in society, but in the house of God. We need to be careful of that. 1 Timothy 4, 1 and 2 says this: the Spirit says clearly that in latter times, some believers will desert the Christian faith. They will follow spirits that deceive. They will believe the teaching of demons. Now, what would be spirits of deception and doctrine of demons? Well, this behavior is okay. You know, God made certain people a certain way. There's certain sexual orientation was created by God. Well, when we go back into the garden, we look, it said God made male and female. God don't make the mistake. We are the ones that want to think we can improve on all this stuff. And again, anything goes and everything goes, and you have to accept me the way I am. Those are doctrines of demons when those type of things are being said from the pulpit. And we need to be careful of that, because that's going to be a characteristic of the end. Verse 2 says this: these people will speak lies disguised as truth. Their conscience has been seared as if by a hot iron. Lies and deception coming from the pulpit. See, you've been taught, and I was taught, oh, it's doctrinal issues. Oh, those Pentecostal people and speaking in tongues, and, you know, that's the deception and the lies. No, no, no. It's when the values of society creep into the pulpit, and now the messages from the pulpit are the same as the messages we're seeing in society. The pulpit was always the moral compass for society. Now the pulpit is becoming the mouthpiece of society. That's the doctrine of demons. Those are the things we're seeing as we get closer to the end times happening. Let me give you a takeaway verse as we wrap it up here. 2 Corinthians 13:5 says this, check up on yourselves. Are you really Christians? Do you pass the test? Do you feel Christ's presence and power more and more within you? Or are you pretending to be Christians when you actually aren't at all? See, don't get caught up in all the signs and wonders. Examine your heart to make sure you're in the faith. The Lord's appearing is coming quickly. I mean, even the apostles, when they wrote the Bible, thought the Lord would come back in their lifetime. But let me ask you, if Jesus was to come back today, you ready to meet him and give an account of your life to him? Now, I don't want this to be a negative thing. But see, all that out there, it's not about being right and predicting and saying, oh yeah, see, I was right with all this that's going on and happening. What needs to be right is this. Are you right with God? If God was to come today and this whole thing ended, because we can see all those signs today. Big name preachers going down. Churches preaching a social gospel. Preachers talking about the things I already talked about earlier. And again, I don't want to get into specifics. Saying these types of behaviors and activities are okay because God understands and God loves everybody. Yes, he does, but he's still a righteous judge. And those behaviors will be judged. And the people that perform those behaviors, that would be judged. That's why we need to come to Christ and say, Lord, forgive me, I'm a sinner. I repent of my sin. I'm walking away from that kind of life. Renew my mind. I confess you as my Lord, and I believe God raised you from the dead. I want to be part of your family. So when all this finally blows up, I know I'll be with you for all eternity. Because there's only two places to go. One's up and one's down. And the only way you get to go up is you confess Christ with your mouth as your Lord, and you believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead. Then you'll be saved. But then from there, you still want to live a holy lifestyle because the Bible says, be holy because I'm holy. It's not just a get out of jail free card. It's not just a get out of hell free card. It's to live a life, to be changed, to become what God created you to be originally. So again, don't get caught up in the signs. Get caught up in regularly examining yourself to see if you're getting caught up in all that, and you're becoming tolerant of all that, and you're becoming tolerant of unrighteousness, which is going to make you unclean and dirty. See, Jesus is coming back for a church without spot or wrinkle. He says we're to be white as snow. It's not religious activity that makes us that, it's relationship. I follow God because I love him. I want to do right things and live right because I love him. Just like I love my wife. I don't want to do things that will purposely hurt her and things that I know she wouldn't like. Do the same with God. How about you? When was the last time you examined yourself and said, Lord, does this bother you? Lord, is this right behavior? Is this right thinking? Signs of the times. Check yourself to see if you're a Christian. And if not, get it right, because one day it's going to be all over and it's going to be too late. I don't mean this to be a downer or a bummer. I mean this to be an encouragement. We all got to come to that place in our life when we say, God, am I really with you? Because I certainly don't want to be against you. because those aren't good odds. Amen. You be blessed. You be encouraged. Again, connect with me, and love to hear from you, your thoughts or whatever. And you be blessed until next week. Love ya.